Welcome to Breakthrough, the podcast looking to help change the music industry and support the grassroots, one episode at a time. Our next artist has jumped into the deep end in 2026, releasing her debut album with her bold, sassy and girl next door sound. I'm talking about Sofia Gobbi. She has a really cool family history and a heritage links to America and Italy, and studying in the UK and London, which is where she's been making most of her music recently and been making real waves in the UK as well. It's all thriving for her right now, but there was so much legwork beforehand and getting herself in the right rooms with the right people in the right studios to get her this experience of writing with incredible producers and fine-tuning her sound. Let's get into it and see how it all came together. Sofia Gobbi, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you on with us. How are you doing? What's life thrown at you lately?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to chat with you and to be here. I'm currently in Italy visiting my family, so it's been really nice, and just preparing for my live show next month. So it's been a real fun time.
Wow, it's all going on. Lots of prep, all the behind the scenes stuff that no one ever sees is
Exactly.
and getting some downtime, which is good to see. And it's not like flat out completely. And you talk about Italy there, of course. That's going to come up. We'll talk about that because I'm fascinated by sort of the complete melting pot of just your culture, your family life, and where it's led you, and making music in the UK. It's going to be so great to talk about that over the next, sort of 30, 40 minutes on the podcast. But it's so great to see your latest record getting some amazing support in the last couple of months. And something you've probably been working so hard on for years now, but we always start this podcast with a similar kind of question. What's been the pivotal breakthrough for you since you first started making music? Maybe you, or maybe some other ones too.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, by the way. I think the biggest thing for me has genuinely just putting my album out. I have been dreaming of this moment every day since I was 8 years old, so it genuinely feels like a dream come true. Like there hasn't been a day since I was 8 years old that I haven't worked towards this or thought about this. Like, it's my first thought every morning that gets me out of bed so excited, and it's my last thought every night before I go to bed. So it's that for me has been the greatest joy of all, honestly.
Yeah. So you're like low-key obsessed then, I think that would be fair to say.
I'm a little obsessed, just a little bit. In fact, my thing this year was like, I need to have one hobby, just one.
Okay. Have you found that yet, or are you still discovering
Yeah,
it?
I found a couple actually.
Mm-hmm.
They're both super random. They're very creative. One of them has been making placemats, which sounds super
Okay.
weird, but it's been a hoot. Lots of collage work, and then cooking. So I've been enjoying cooking a lot with my family since I've been back home, and just exploring with spices and flavors and stuff like that. So they both feel very creative, but they're not musical, which is healthy for me.
Yeah. So if it all goes wrong, you could have the future in a really top restaurant and
Exactly.
just wow us that way. I don't think it's going to. Let me just put that out there and make that clear.
Thank you.
I
appreciate it.
we've got backup plans. That's cool. I have to address this obviously right away before we go any further. You mentioned obviously you're in Italy having some downtime. This American Italian mix. So what would you say you're more of? You must get this conversation come up quite a lot.
I think it's very 50-50. I've always felt a little bit more like my American side growing up for some reason. And I think that's why I just started writing in English. It just felt more natural for me. But I was born and raised in Italy until I was 18 years old, so I lived most of my life
Wow.
here.
Okay.
So I went to Italian school and everything, and my mom's from California, so we'd go out and visit her side of the family. And that was my highlight of the year growing up.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of this promised land, that this perfect world I'd step into every once in a while. And so I was just so drawn to it, and so yeah, just kind of grew up between the two.
Yeah. How split were you between both of those? Because you've got obviously when I think about music, you've got the American culture maybe of what, I don't want to age you here, but say the mid noughties or that kind of time when you were younger, and then in Italy you've got the European effect, but I'm not so aware of that. So what was the clash of both of those like?
It's really funny because growing up, I never listened to Italian music, which is
Oh, okay.
yeah, I don't know why. Like I just didn't. It was a lot of like music from the States and the UK.
Hmm.
It was always like music in English, so I always just kind of like really resonated with that, and I think that's why I started writing in English. But I think yeah, growing up here definitely had an influence on my sound and my way of writing as well. But I'd say like the US and the UK have been my biggest sources of inspiration musically.
So you were jetting back and forth. Would you spend like, I don't know, a week or a month, or like
I'd
fleeting?
spend like a month,
Hmm.
a year every couple years, because we'd go visit like my grandparents and my
Hmm.
cousins and everyone, because my mom wanted to go back home.
Yeah.
So we were, my sister and I were really lucky to get to she wanted to bring us back home with her. So
Yeah.
it was nice. But yeah, most of, all of the other like 11 months a year I spent in Italy. So yeah, I spent most of my time here growing up.
So you have more of the American side of music then, when you were sort of in that phase of discovering that part of
Yeah.
yourself. What were the records that maybe were like handed down to you, or for the friends when you were in the States and spending time there, that you were just like soaking up, that I assume has had a massive influence to where you are now?
Huge. So my parents aren't musicians, but they're like huge, huge music fans. And my dad claims he's the biggest Rolling Stone fan of all time. So I'm like, not
Don't
arguing
argue
with
with him.
that.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So I grew up with a lot of the Stones playing around the house, and I'm a huge fan of Neil Young. We listened to a lot of him growing up,
Hmm.
so his songwriting had a real bit of impact on me. My mom loves disco music from the 70s and 80s, so there was a lot of that playing around the house. A lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire, stuff
Oh,
like that.
beautiful.
Yeah, so there was a real mix going around. So I got a lot of great influences growing up. So I feel super lucky about that. And then kind of on my own, I mean, it all started with Disney Channel. So Hannah Montana, I was like, cool, I love this stuff.
Yeah.
So it kind of went from there, and then yeah, I love the oldies, and I love stuff from the noughties and early 2000s, and there's just I listen to so much music. My mom's like a big Talking Heads fan as well, so I
Okay.
listened to them a lot
Yeah.
growing up, and they actually were a huge influence on my album that just came out.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's so many of those like fusings together. But ultimately, we'll talk about your album in depth. But on that point, like it still sounds, very modern of today. I know that you referenced Viagra Boys as a bit of a influence as well, like the playful side of things. But I can see all of those clashing together. So I assume that's very just natural and very innate within you. You're not thinking about that too much.
No, I'm just kind of trying to be the most me possible, I
Hmm.
guess.
Hmm.
And so I think, everything we're like exposed to becomes part of us in one way or another. And so I think all this different music and these different artists that I've been exposed to kind of have just become part of my sound. And so I just kind of embrace it all. But yeah, Viagra Boys are my favorite band. I've seen them quite a few times in the past year, and I just like scream, sing my head off every time I see them. It's my favorite show.
They are pretty bonkers. It's the kind of part of Sweden that you think might exist, but maybe doesn't. But then you're reminded it does.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really funny because like my best friend and I went to both gigs together the past year.
Mm.
And it's like it's all these like lads, and then it's like me and her with our like very like high pitched voices, and we know every lyric, and we're like, yeah, like sports.
Let's go. Yeah, at least there's good harmonies in there. I mean, you're providing
Exactly.
that side of things. And then they
Exactly.
discover that, you're like got your own album going on. And I mean, that's the plan, right?
Yeah.
all along. But just to hop back to, but both your parents, they weren't musicians. What was the attitude in your family, or like your close circle, towards wanting to do music as a job, a career, or something to aspire to? Could your parents see it quite early on? Did they encourage you to do it?
Thank you for that question, first of all. It's very thoughtful. Yeah, yeah, because like it's something I do think about a lot. Because like my parents were always very encouraging, but they were always they're very like logical people.
Hmm.
And so they were always like, go for it, but like you need to have a plan B. And I was like, but I only have this plan A, like I don't want a
It's
plan
so
B. Like
relatable. Yeah.
it's bad juju to have a plan B. And my mom was like, you're getting a degree. And so school was always like really important. And they always were like, as long, you need to work really hard and, finish high school, or college for you
Yeah.
in the UK, and then go to university. And I was like, okay, but then I can study music. And they were like, no, you need like, a real degree. And I was like, oh gosh. So I ended up studying, English literature and creative writing. So I was writing poetry. And
Okay.
so I kind of felt like that was my little loophole. So I was like, like it really helped inform my songwriting. So I'm super grateful in hindsight for that opportunity. I feel like it really, yeah, it really helped with my lyrics a lot.
It feels like a real workaround where you kind of just like, right, no, we're satisfying mum and dad, but I'm still doing the music thing. Don't tell anyone. I'm
Literally.
going
And I
towards that.
Yeah, and I remember going to, I was at in London at uni, and during my first year, a few of my like flatmates were doing music courses, and I had asked them to print out their schedule for me, and I snuck into all the music classes until
Oh,
about like halfway through the semester when I got kicked out because they were like, "You're not on the like, you're not part of this," and I was like, "Dang it!"
that is so smart. Wow. I mean, so what it took. So you said 6 months. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it was
you're just
I
sneaking
had a good
in.
run. And then I was like, just send me your like syllabus and your reading list and then I'll do the rest on my own. But it was I was so basically I was like I was studying English, but I wasn't studying for the grades for the first time in my life because I didn't care about that.
Yeah.
I was just like I want to, really work on my songwriting. And so I'd go into like my Shakespeare class and just underline the things that were relevant to my writing and stuff. And then I was like, forget the rest, whatever. But it
Doth the
worked out.
doth this be a good lyric? I don't know.
Exactly.
Something like that. It just maybe it doesn't really work in 2026.
Shakespeare walked so that I could write that ass. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And it's what he manifested and planned all of those centuries ago.
Exactly.
But yeah, so two for the price of one then. That's really cool. So like, hang on, we've got a mixture of Disney Channel, Hannah Montana, Shakespeare, English literature, and creative writing, and yeah, but a mix of Italy and America. Like this is like so far before we even get to where we are now. That's just so like rich and cool. But you probably, when you think about it all of like that, obviously you're just living your life like of what it is. But when you look at that retrospectively, do you sort of see like how like, I don't know, I guess unique that is and must be really rich for you in like the music you're making now?
Yeah, I honestly hadn't really thought about it until you just pointed out
Sorry.
2 years ago. So no, it's great. It's true. It is like a big combination of things and yeah, that is nice. Thanks
Yeah,
for
yeah.
pointing that out.
You're welcome. Anytime. So you came to London for uni or in the UK? Was that the main time you lived here, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so that was the big leap of faith. And then I'm sure that you knew all too well, like you were saying, you followed music in the UK and America, that the UK could be something really powerful, maybe for you to like develop in music and stuff. So taking that leap of faith maybe after uni to stick around here and still, I guess, dabble in this part of the industry, was that a really hard choice to make? Did it seem like a no-brainer? Because obviously the Grassroots in the UK is, wax lyrical about to get started with a career.
Yeah. So basically, it's funny because like when I graduated, I moved to LA actually, for music. I have dual citizenship, so it was pretty, and I have family there, so I was living with family, so it was pretty easy to go there. And I was just, you just hear LA and like music, and I just, grew up thinking that was the place to be. And so I moved there and I was working on music for about 6 months, and then COVID happened, and I was visiting family in Italy, and I got stuck in Italy, and so it gave me some time to think because I realized LA is an amazing place, but for an emerging artist, I feel like it's not like, I feel like London and the UK are better suited. And I also just felt like with the music that I was writing, the UK was such like a perfect environment for that, and I really missed it when I was in the States. So, being back home for COVID and having some downtime to kind of re-strategize, I realized London is my place. And I've been there for almost like 8 years now. In September, it'll be eight
Wow.
years.
Okay.
So I don't sound British, but I feel
No.
British today. But basically, it just feels like the perfect in between, like Italy and the US to me. So I feel super at home there, more than I sometimes do in Italy or in the US. Like it just feels like
Controversial.
yes. I know. Don't tell anyone. It's like a live podcast, but like, um, so I just like figured that London was the place for me, and moving back, just confirmed that. And I'm also, because like I've had no other hobbies in my life except for music. When I read books, I love reading, but it's always been like musicians' autobiographies because I feel really connected to them. And I feel, it's such a, like, there's no like clear path in this industry as an artist. Like everyone's just kind of carving out their own. And so reading other musicians' autobiographies and their stories kind of gave me a little bit of a path to follow, and just, made me feel a little bit grounded. And a lot of them, like Blondie, Chrissy Hind, those kinds of their stories were about how in the US no one was really giving them the time of day, and then they came to the UK, and because you guys have such an amazing like grit and edge in your culture that I just adore. It's so well suited to that genre too, and there's so much support for that. And so they kind of broke when they were in the UK, and there's the Killers, same thing. Like
Yeah, so true.
and so I really took that into account, and I just was like confirmation that this is my place.
Yeah. So the first song you put out was a track called "Waiting Room," right? I think
Yeah.
I remember looking back the other day. And how did you feel about that part? That typical thing of every artist going through that very first song out there into the world. Why was this sort of the right first song to put out into the world, and the time that you did as well? Because it sounds like you were writing quite a bit with all the COVID stuff and all that mixed in. It sounds like you'd been working a lot of years before this.
Yeah. So I put out a song even before Waiting Room called 10. And that one felt right because it was kind of a story about growing up and about, your childhood, in comparison to your early adulthood. And I just felt like it was a good introduction to me as a person and as an artist to be like, hey, like this is where I'm from, and my experience. And so I feel like a lot of the times when you meet someone for the first time too, you ask, where are you from? Where did you grow up? And stuff like that. So I feel like that was kind of that conversation in song form. And so that's why that song felt really special to be my first one to put out. And then Waiting Room was a segue to that. And it was still quite similar genre-wise. And that's because growing up in Italy, no one really spoke English around here except for my mom and like my best friend. And so I was writing, my songs were a lot quieter because I was just writing alone in my room. I didn't really have an audience.
Yeah.
So they were just more introspective and a little more quiet. And then when I moved to London, I started doing like 3 or 4 open mics a week, and everyone was wasted in the pub and talking. People, like, I put so much effort into these lyrics, like I really wanted people to listen.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, you're in a pub, it's normal. But I went home one night and I wrote the song Waiting Room, and I feel like it's the perfect bridge between my old sound and my current one that feels just so me. But it kind of starts off a little quiet and then ends it's very like cathartic and loud. And by the end of the song, the whole pub was quiet and was listening. So it felt really satisfying.
It worked.
And so that really informed the writing of my album, honestly. So, yeah.
And I just noticed with the track Waiting Room, I noticed some of the credits on this track, and I know some people feel humble or not so humble about name dropping slightly, but I think it's really important to illustrate that on this track you had Jonah Summerfield, who's worked with people like Holly Humberstone, Matt Wiggins, who's worked with Adele, Coldplay, U2 as well, and then I know the late John Davis was really revered and respected for working with people like Gorillaz, Damon Albarn and Dua Lipa as well. First, what's it like to work with experience like I've just mentioned? And when you're an artist in that first step of the journey, How do you make those connections happen?
That's a great question. A lot of like just talking to people and cold emailing and oof, I mean, how much time do you
I
have?
have lots. Go for it. Because I feel like with people, listening, and for any artist, like these, I think it's fair to say, golden moments or like points in time, especially at the start of your career, like it's invaluable to maybe get a bit of an insight into that.
Yeah, for sure. I think it all just came from one, different connections, and they all just kind of like ended up leading to being able to talk to these people. But my current producer and co-writer Andrea, who I did the whole album with, we had become friends in 2021. So before I put out my song 10, and I ended up producing that with him. And he was working as an engineer at this big studio. He had studied at Abbey Road Institute. So I think um mastering, maybe it was a suggestion of his. He was like, check out Metropolis, and I did, and he had a connection who was busy and ended up connecting me with you know and so that's how the mastering ended up. But as far as production, I think that was also someone I knew who connected me with Jonah. Or actually, sorry,
No,
it's
please.
a lot of like,
Yeah,
I think
webs. Yeah.
I have like Excel sheets of like who I want to work with at every like stage of
Wow.
my career.
Okay.
I have a very clear vision.
That's nuts.
Um, and so at this point, actually, when I worked with Jonah, it was because I would go in these loops of like going into Instagram and these dark holes, and I'd found some of the artists that I really liked who were writing similar music to me, and I'd go on their credits and see who'd produced what, who'd mixed and mastered, and then I'd find who managed them, and then I'd reach out to them and just cold email. And so Jonah's manager got back to me, and she was like, I'd love to, I'll play it for Jonah, and if he likes it, and he ended up liking the song, and so we worked together, and it was amazing. And then maybe it was through him that I met my mixing engineer at the time, or it might have been through another one of my searches.
But to sort of round that all up, how much is that kind of effort in the demo, and how much of it is in the taking the chance of just emailing and seeing what comes back? Because that must be just you're hoping you obviously get a tick on both of those things. But in the feeling that you've had with that experience, what would you say?
Yeah, I've gotten so used to putting myself out there. It was scary at the beginning, and now I'm just like, meh,
Whatever.
So, um, I think at the beginning I really believed in the demo, and I think I had a really good one because I'd recorded it with a producer. So it was a solid demo. And then from that, I think, with Jonah, he really understood what I was going for. So it kind of just naturally transitioned into that. But it's a lot of effort on both sides. It's a lot of like, I've been managing myself up until now, and it's been great, but doing that and writing and being an artist as well is
Yeah.
a lot to juggle.
Of course, yeah. I mean, we've got to be ambitious, right? And
I
sometimes
mean,
the ambition's too big to carry ourselves.
exactly. And then you go home and rest.
This is it. Hence why you're in Italy, just having the downtime.
Exactly, literally.
And then what have been some of your favourite moments in the studio so far, but maybe particularly the debut album, Bigger Man, which I've said is a really pivotal moment for you?
Yeah. Honestly, every day just working with my producer, co-writer was just the best day. We had so much fun together, and we became such close friends throughout this process. We literally just laughed all day, every day when we were writing. And I think it comes through in the record because it sounds fun, and that's literally the amount of fun we had every day. And I think, yeah, maybe one of the most fun times was writing the song That Ass. It was the first song that we wrote where I was like, okay, this sounds like an album. And I remember, bringing, like the night before our session, I'd written the first verse and chorus. And I was like, yeah, it's not that good. Classic. I'm always like that. And then I brought it in, and Andrea was like, this is great. Like, we have to finish this. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so we were laughing so much and we just having the best time coming up with like the voicemail idea and all
Mm.
these things. And I think that was maybe one of my favorite days. But yeah.
And how important is it, like, sometimes as an artist to leave something there? Because I'm sort of the worst of this. Like, anyone that's a creative or working on something, like, you'll be so insistent on finishing that thing before you go home, and it will bug you, and if you don't do it. But sometimes it's really healthy to actually step away from that and then come back the next day and go, oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I am all for that. I know a lot of artists like get in the studio and they're like, we need to finish the song today. And sometimes I wish I was like that, but honestly, the way I work is very like I need to sit on things.
Mm.
I can't force like a song to be finished. It needs time to breathe
Yeah.
for me personally. And so sometimes I'll start writing a song and I'm really like vibing with it, and then the vibe goes away, and I'm
Dissipates.
like,
Yeah.
exactly, and I'm like, that's okay. Like I don't want to force it, so I'll leave it, work on something else, and then go back to it when I feel inspired again. So I'm really just, it is a practice that I work at every day, but I also think it's important to shift your focus
Mm.
if you feel stuck and to not force anything too much.
Yeah, and I imagine that a lot of that experience, aside from putting out your own music, I'd seen that you'd been a finalist in a quite a few songwriting contests, which again is taking the initiative of, I guess, putting yourself out there and just going with the flow from across the globe, but without sounding really obvious. What are they like to be part of, apart from your songwriting? Like, how do they actually work? Because I feel like it's maybe one of those things neglected in artists' thoughts where, they just want to get on GarageBand in their bedroom and just go for like the first couple of singles.
So your question, like, how is it to be part of one of these
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
competitions?
yeah.
I honestly just submitted the songs and hoped for the best.
Right, okay.
It was just like I just yeah, chose my category, submitted, and I was like, I hadn't written the album yet when I submitted the songs.
Mm.
I'd written like Bigger Man and What You Doing, and I think those were maybe the only two songs I'd release off the record. And so I was like, got nothing to lose. And I
Yeah.
remember applying for those same songwriting competitions 5 years prior, got not even one response. And so all the hard work and the dedication, like it pays off
Mm.
eventually.
Mm.
It's got to. So 5 years later, I did end up a finalist in all the ones that I hadn't gotten before. So that was really felt good.
Yeah, yeah. Of course it
Yeah,
did. Yeah, it's
yeah.
validating, isn't it? And but how valuable have these competitions been for you in progressing your career? Whether that's like for your own self belief, but also for the people that are wanting to hear your music, you wanting to get yourself out there, because it's a two-way street, that whole thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you're so right that it gave me, a little bit, a little more confidence in what I was doing. But also one of the reasons I did do it was because I thought, when I'm pitching myself or, wanting to work with people, I have this under my sleeve. And if I get any kind of, feedback from these institutions, that'll be really valuable, and it has been. So I'm grateful I did that, and it's definitely something I would recommend doing if people have the opportunity to. Yeah, I just remember like the 5 years before I like applied for these ones. I had really rough demos, and they say like, oh, you can, send us anything, even if it's rough. Like I would do it once you're really confident with what you have, because at the time, they're very competitive. So I think just submit something that you're really, really proud of. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's the thing, is it? Like, they obviously want people to get involved, but you obviously want to do it at the time you feel like it's best reflecting you. But I guess you
yeah,
learnt a lot from that first time, and then you came back stronger second
yeah.
time.
And then, if I can give one piece of advice actually from
Mm?
that experience, is that before submitting my songs, I actually went and did research on the previous year's winners for each
Ah,
category
okay.
to see what kind of songs had won. And so based off of that information, I ended up submitting specific songs for each one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So maybe that could help.
That's deep stuff, but I mean, it worked, right?
It worked.
And I guess you have fun with that because you can experiment with different styles, and it's almost like a springboard for you to
Yeah.
be making
Because
the
like
songs
I
you're
noticed,
making.
yeah, some were more about like a more commercial song, some like more alternative. So I kind of catered my submissions to those genres. Yeah.
I think of an example like Julia Michaels, if you don't mind me, comparing just for a second, who's embodied, both sides of her career in that sense. Do you want to mould further into someone who can flitter between the songwriting and obviously releasing your own stuff? Because I assume you've written for other people as well, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Not as much as as like for myself, but I have written for others and I do really enjoy it. It feels like a very different experience because you're a little more objective and yeah, it's just like a little bit more of a freeing experience because you're not so like worried about, is this I feel like sometimes like trying to see yourself objectively is really hard because obviously you're yourself. So when I'm in a room with another artist and I hear their thoughts, and what they want to write about, it's a lot easier for me to synthesize that and kind of like regurgitate it for them, and if that makes sense. So yeah, they're two very different experiences, and I do enjoy them equally, and I'd love to write more for others. And even songs that I've written maybe for myself that I don't end up putting on a record, I would love to give those to other artists that might like them.
And as much as you might regret it, but you'll get there. In the end, you'll be like, yeah, okay, this is for someone else, even though I spent
Yeah.
2 years on this. Oh, and you were saying about how you have Excel spreadsheets of like who you want to work with at certain points of your career. Is there anyone like Julia or any artist, singer, songwriter you would love to spend a day with in a room and see just what happened?
I mean, Julia definitely.
Yeah,
Amy Allen.
I hear her name a lot.
Just a little. She's very, very new to the scene. They are two of the songwriters I would really, really like to work with. So fingers crossed that can happen soon.
It seems like what's come across in our conversation so far is like you've made a real effort to be connected into the industry and seeking out people that can get you further along. How important is it for artists at any stage to not neglect those side of things, like doing the emails, trying to be in different rooms, being in these competitions? Like it seems like you've left no stone unturned with that.
I try not to.
Yeah.
I think personally, it's been super important. I know everyone has a different experience, but I've also felt, I think this is just like something I've felt my whole life is that like, I don't feel like things come to me. I feel like I really need to go and seek them out. And to some people, things just come to them, and I'm just like, wow, like what must that be
I
like?
hate you.
No, I'm just like, wow, like that must feel so great.
Yeah.
Just like it's like I'm writing a song about this actually at the moment, but it's kind of like going, the flow of the river is constantly like guiding you, and I just have my whole life I've felt like I've been swimming upstream. So that's what the song is about. But I know a lot of people can relate. So just to answer your question, for me it's been important, and if anyone else feels the way I do about these things, then I would suggest reaching out is very important. If you have time, I do have a story about how I met my producer that might be
Please, I want to hear about all of this.
I told him recently because I was like, this is so creepy.
Okay,
Like,
I'm
I was
prepared.
like,
Hang on. I just
we've
need to
been
take a deep
friends
breath.
for-
Hold on.
Yeah,
Right,
we've
go.
been friends for 5 years, and I just told him because whenever people are like, "How did you guys meet?" He's like, "I don't know," and I was like, so basically, I spent years and years and years looking for the right producer, and I worked with so many people, and they were amazing. It just wasn't the right chemistry, the right fit. Like looking for a partner,
Yeah.
in your musical soulmate, and so obviously it's going to take time and patience. And this was during COVID that I'd worked with so many people, and I was just like, I haven't quite met my person. And so when I was like re-strategizing and thinking, okay, I'm gonna move back to London, And I'd reached out to so many of these big songwriters and producers, and obviously, like, I was and am a nobody, so obviously they
Hey.
didn't know who I was, and weren't reaching back out to me. So I was like, okay, I need to like dial it down, and try and think of people who are, at my same stage career-wise, who are just as passionate about me, but about production, and who are really driven and, are looking to work with someone. And so I was like, where do I find these people? And I thought, well, they've probably gone to a music school. And since I'm moving back to London, I know a lot of music schools have Instagram accounts, and usually who they follow are their alumni. So I went on every music university in London and followed everyone they followed.
Okay.
I'd spend hours at night until Instagram was like, you're following too many people. You need to take a break. And so I'd have to wait like a day or two because I was like locked out of it, of like following people. And then one of these people was Andrea, my producer, who had studied at Abbey Road Institute. And no one else had messaged me back, and he messaged me. He was like, hey, do I know you? And I was like, no, but hey. And we just started chatting and got along super well. And then we met up, and we've literally been best friends since. And he was working as an engineer at the time in northeast London. And he was like, oh, if production seems interesting, but I don't know if I'm good enough and stuff like that. And I was like, I really saw his potential, and he really saw mine. And so we started working together, and yeah, rest is history. But we're gonna be besties for life. But that's like the lengths I've gone to the point, like these things just don't like happen to me. Like I really need to go and really work towards that.
Yeah. I love you were honest with him when he was when he asked, like, have we met before? You could have come up with some really elaborate story like, oh, is it this like Abbey Road thing? And I was over there in the corner, I was going, hey, hi. But you didn't, which is good. And it probably turned out to be the right decision. Because we don't want to be creeping out like future producers that you want to work with, of course.
Yeah, like I didn't tell him the real story until like a month ago.
Yeah. That's a brave choice, I think.
Yeah, I was like, please don't judge me for this.
So, this seems like all this stuff seems like proper mood board stuff. And you sort of you kind of I'm trying not make it sound like too detective like in that way and paint you in that light, but it seems very coordinated. It seems very like purposeful, and you've kind of got this whole mood board like planned out. So where did the debut album fit into that, and then how do you feel about sort of launching off of this, Pat? Because you said the song Like That House and the whole of the album's doing great, of course, and like down to your efforts. Where do you think that's going to blossom? Where do you hope it will blossom to?
I mean, soon. I got bills to pay.
Haven't we all?
We're not quite there with the music yet, so I'm really hoping things pick up more soon. They've been so great so far, and I'm very happy with what I've been able to achieve on my own, and I'm just looking for the right team now. So, I hope once they come along that things will kind of happen at a bit of a faster pace. But it's also, I think I'm really grateful for the pace things have been happening, because I can take my time to really build this project from the ground up, and I have full creative control right now, which is really nice. I know not every artist has that, so I think there's a lot to be grateful for at this stage, even though I don't have everything that I wish I had, but I think I have everything I need.
Well, let's just look at it like this to finish. Like your world tour is basically set for itself, because you're doing the UK, you're doing Italy, and you're doing America, every single state. I mean what's not to love?
I'm excited. I can't wait to tour this record, honestly. It was really written with touring in mind, every song, every hook. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Let's just think, 2027, Sofia Gobbi coming to a venue near you, wherever you're watching this in the entire world. Particularly,
we're manifesting this
now. We certainly are, particularly here in the UK. We're going to play this clip back, and we're just going to put it to the side, and we're like, see, it was happening. Sofia, it's been such a pleasure to chat with you, and thank you for hopping on in Italy some time out of your, so-called relaxing to chat to us about all of this. Best of luck with the rest of the year, and I'm sure we'll bump into each other sometime.
Thank thank you so much for having me and for thinking of me for this. I really appreciate it, and it was so much fun.